trade. But yeah, he's a Buckeye, though. I need to see if he can do it. If I see him do it once, then I know he can do it.
All right, on to the Rockets. According to reports from friend of the show, Vincent Goodwill, Chris Paul has demanded a trade from Houston, and his relationship with James Harden is unsalvageable. Vincent will be here in about 45 minutes to discuss this. As for Chris Paul, he commented on an Instagram post about the trade. News to me. And Rockets GM Daryl Morey denied Chris Paul demanded a trade. Nick, what's your reaction to all of this?
My reaction's multifaceted because this is a very tenuous position for me. Vincent Goodwill is not only a friend of the show,
I yield my time to Senator from Kansas City.
Okay, so he's not only a friend of the show, he's a friend of mine, and it was on my suggestion we started bringing him on the show, and he's done a great job. So I've known Vinny a long time. He is a great reporter. I've also known Daryl a very long time, and I think he's a great GM, and I don't know either one of these people to ever mislead me. I talked to Daryl yesterday. He flatly tells me Chris Paul has not demanded a trade. Vincent Goodwill is clearly hearing what other people have heard. Vinny just got it locked down, which is that Chris Paul did, in fact, demand a trade. At this point where we sit here today, I am confident in this. The Rockets are not going to trade Chris Paul. That the Rockets, if Chris Paul did demand a trade, as Vincent has reported, I think what the Rockets came back to him and told him, I would imagine, I don't know this, Daryl didn't tell me this, he says it never happened, is that, hey man, there's not a market. 3 years, $120 million for a 34-year-old, 6-foot maybe point guard. That's clearly on the downside. There is not a market. But no matter what, my pal Daryl Morey will say, where I am with Vinny 1,000%, is there is clearly some problems going on in Houston. And maybe I should have paid more attention to how their season ended. Not on the court in Game 6 against the Warriors, but right after that. Chris Paul and James Harden have been doing these press conferences together all postseason. Chris Paul, after that game, gets dressed the fastest he's ever gotten dressed, breaks NBA protocol, does his press conference not only by himself, but before Steve Kerr or Mike D'Antoni even get to do theirs.
I don't think we've ever seen a player do it before the coaches.
You're not supposed to. Right. And it was maybe just to get out of there, maybe because he didn't want to do it next to James Harden. Then when Harden does his press conference by himself, he's asked about what the Rockets need to do to get over the hump. And he says very cryptically, and we can read into what we want, oh, I know exactly what we need to do.
And at the time, we didn't know to read something into it. But when you start going back and you start hearing these things, and we've just been through a really special time, and we've seen a lot of organizations say that there's turmoil, and then people in the organization say, yeah, I know there's nothing there. I'll give you a couple examples. Pittsburgh Steelers. Now Antonio's gone to Oakland. We found out, wow,
how bad it was.
Los Angeles Lakers, Magic Johnson and the young rookies, both of them either in the trade, Magic with Rob Pelinka. We found out afterwards, wow, there was a lot of truth to that. So a lot of time when you start hearing these stories, it's Daryl's job, and I didn't talk to Daryl, but it's his job to tell Nick, no, man, that didn't happen. So I can understand why Chris Paul would be like, oh, no, I didn't demand the trade. Yeah. How could you trade? It'd be almost impossible. Like, his contract is untradeable. Him and John Wall have the 2 worst contracts in the NBA. Is there someone willing to reach up their hand and say, you know, Chris Paul, the next 3 years, you know, I'm going to give him $120 million. Like, he's not worth that now, and it's only going to get worse over the next couple years. So there has to be some truth to this.
And in an odd way, Chris Paul actually has more value for the Rockets than for anyone else, because they have their starting 5 locked in. That, you know, even if personality-wise he and Harden aren't getting along, you know on the court it works. You know that this team is actually a really good team that could not get through one specific opponent. So the positive side for the Rockets is this. If I describe a team that over the course of a half-decade is at or near the top of their conference in the regular season, in the playoffs, keeps running into one opponent and can't get through that one opponent. There is turmoil on the coaching staff. There is potential trade rumors surrounding their second-best player. Who am I describing? The 2019 Houston Rockets or the 2018 Toronto Raptors? The idea is LeBron left, and Golden State is damaged, that there was Dwayne Casey was fired, Mike D'Antoni had guys on his coaching staff removed. Of course, the difference is Kawhi Leonard's not walking through that door for Houston, at least not that we could see a player of his caliber even close to it. But we have seen teams have this type of turmoil right before they break through. The question is, can Chris Paul and James Harden get back on the same page to a degree? Because I get why these guys don't, I get where the rub would be, where the problem would be. For James Harden, he's got to feel like, what do I have to do to earn more respect? I've gotten better every year. I've cut out some of the more, I don't want to say nefarious, but some of the more unhealthy parts of my off-the-court lifestyle. I stay in the gym. I'm a league MVP, almost won it again. When you got hurt, Chris, I carried us with an near NBA record 30-point streak.
Well, what's next is, does he make other players better? Yeah, he's made himself. You said it. I've made myself better. I've made myself better. But now in the NBA, he can't take over a game, a playoff series. We've seen that. And this style, it's not that people don't trust Harden, it's all the other things. Are they ever going to be good defensively? Are they going to be good enough to be able to win a championship? And to me, it's not just Golden State. I don't believe in the coach. Their owner don't believe in the coach. That's the reason why they didn't sign him immediately to a contract extension. And that trickles down. When you feel that on the coach, it trickles down to the team. Now they're going to do what they want to do. Chris Paul feels like D'Antoni is not doing his job as far as being on James Harden.
For as much as we're talking, though, about D'Antoni, about style, about Harden and CP3's relationship, how much of this falls on Chris Paul? Because it's not like him and James Harden are the first time that he has butted heads with teammates. There's a track record for his disposition, for his behaviors, for his character, not always getting along, his leadership style not always being one that players can relate to. How much of this is on Chris Paul himself?
Well, that's the flip side to this coin, is to quote our friend Mark Schlereth, and I'll paraphrase it, if everywhere you go it stinks, maybe it's you. And I love Chris Paul as a player, and I know him a very little bit as a guy, and I really like him as off the court as well. But he's braying and abrasive and always in your face. There's the famous clip of when DeAndre Jordan didn't do the putback in LA and he's jumping up and down screaming at him. There's a clip from the Drew League, the damn Drew League, man. The first summer when Chris Paul and James Harden came together. And James Harden took a shot instead of a layup, and after he made it, he's dancing. And in the Drew League, Chris Paul walks up to him and is yelling at him, saying, take the layup. And Harden's like, what are you talking about? It's one thing when you're a top 5 MVP candidate, the point guard, the best point guard in the league, to have that be your leadership style. It's another thing when you are the second, or in the playoffs, the third best player on your own team, to have that same style. It has worn on teammates year after year. So that's where Harden can't be blamed, because he's not the unique factor in this. Like, you have a lot of teammates that, while they appreciate what Chris Paul brings to the table, the way he communicates, the way he conducts himself can wear on people, and that's been throughout his entire career.
Yeah, I don't feel like you're going to get the best of Chris Paul if you continually have him off the ball. And the thing that Harden has thrived in, that is not what Chris Paul, that's not how he's going to be an effective leader. Because it's hard to lead unless you're playing well. This year, didn't shoot the ball well, either from 2 or 3-point range. So now we saw he only played 50-something games this year. Man, this is one of the worst years that Chris Paul had. And they said they're just trying to get him to the playoffs healthy. But if he doesn't have the ball in his hand, facilitating, running the offense, making other players better, it's going to be difficult for him. So I don't see this situation as getting better.
All right, well, we'll have the man on himself in just a little bit. Vincent will be here to break it all down. Coming up, do the Lakers need a third star to have a chance at a title? That is next on First Things First.
Vincent, he from Detroit. We're getting ready to find out if he can fight. We're getting ready to find out, man. People question his integrity. Now, Vincent, man, bro, you have to put him up.